Hi. So we're going to continue our study of the Book of Certitude, the Kitab-i-Igan, revealed by Baha'u'llah. And we are on page 96, paragraph 111. And he has been talking about what Baha'is call the manifestations of God, or the divine revelators, the divine messengers who come from age to age to bring to breathe new life into religion, really, so that as religion loses its integrity, a new messenger comes and reinvigorates it, and that's why we have all these different religions in the world. And Baha'u'llah is talking about how these divine messengers, these manifestations of God, they have the key for humanity, but people have interpreted their words in very superstitious and superficial ways, and how each time a new divine messenger comes, he tells what the true interpretation of the prophecies and the words are. And now Baha'u'llah is talking about this subject, and he says, "Yea, inasmuch as the peoples of the world have failed to seek from the luminous and crystal springs of divine knowledge the inner meaning of God's holy words, they therefore have languished, stricken and sore athirst in the veil of idle fancy and waywardness." So I'm going to interpret that because I know that not everybody knows the meanings of these words. So I'm going to go back again. He says, inasmuch as the peoples of the world, so he's saying because the peoples of the world have failed to seek from the luminous, that means giving off light, and crystal clear springs of divine knowledge. In other words, because they haven't gone to the manifestations of God, God's divine messengers, to ask what these things mean, they have therefore languished, so they haven't been able to make progress. They're stuck. And they're sore thirst for, they're thirsty for spirituality. People, we see this, we see people in the churches, in the synagogues, in the mosques. They're looking for spirituality, but because of their inability to look beyond their own circumscribed, limited outlook, they can't get the true meanings. That's why, and an example of that is that story from the New Testament about how Jesus and his followers were walking through a field on a Sabbath day, and they picked some grain to eat. And they were called to account for it because that was considered work on the Sabbath. And Jesus said, the Sabbath was made for man. Man wasn't made for the Sabbath. And that was an example of a divine manifestation of God explaining to the followers of the former faith the true meaning of the law. So in that case, the Jews themselves, whose law it was, didn't understand it. And without turning to Christ, they were stuck. But that's true of the followers of every faith, that every faith needs to look forward to the next manifestation to understand their own teachings. So in this day, we're in the day of Baha'u'llah's revelation. We won't have another revelation for 1,000 years. And then that messenger will tell us more about he'll explain to us more about what Baha'u'llah meant. And for now, we need to look at this revelation to understand the past revelations. So it says they've languished, stricken, and sore thirst in the veil of idle fancy and waywardness. In other words, they've gone astray. And they haven't been able to make progress, and they haven't been spiritually satisfied. They have strayed far from the fresh and thirst-subduing waters, and gathered round the salt that burneth bitterly. So these people, all of these people, of course, that's not to say that a person can't get anything out of these past revelations. You can, but so much of it is filled with hypocrisy and superstition and ignorance and exploitation. So people are turning to the religions, but they're not being satisfied. They've gathered round the salt that burneth bitterly. For instance, religion is supposed to bring people together. And how many times do we see it being used to separate people? And for some people to feel superior to others. That's not what God wants for us. God made us as one family, one human family. And that's what religion should be promoting. Concerning them, the dove of eternity hath spoken. Here he's referring to Muhammad, and he says, and if they see the path of righteousness, they will not take it for their path. But if they see the path of error, for their path will they take it. This because they treated our signs as lies and were heedless of them. So Shakespeare said it. He said, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. What we say in the Baha'i faith is, the sun, no matter what place it rises from, is still the sun. You have to worship the sun of truth, not the place that it rose from. I'm going to read one more paragraph. To this testifieth that which hath been witnessed in this wondrous and exalted dispensation. So he's saying, Baha'u'llah in his dispensation has revealed wondrous verses. Myriads of holy verses, many, many, many countless holy verses, have descended from the heaven of might and grace. Divine revelation has come upon Baha'u'llah. Yet no one hath turned thereunto. People aren't listening, nor cease to cling to those words of men, not one letter of which they that have spoken them comprehend. So people are saying a lot of stuff. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean it's true. For this reason, the people have doubted incontestable truths such as these. In other words, people are following their leaders. They're not looking into truth for themselves. And cause themselves to be deprived of the Rezvan of divine knowledge, the paradise of divine knowledge, and the eternal meadows of celestial wisdom. Because people are listening to other people and they're not sincerely searching to find truth for themselves. Okay, I'm sure I must have offended a whole bunch of people. Oh, there's a lot of good things in the religions, but the way that they're conducted doesn't inspire people to look into truth everywhere they can look and take what's good from each path. It inspires people to just close off and close their minds and shut their minds down. Okay? See you next time. Allah, God is most